Hi, welcome to another edition of Antique Radio Archaeology. Today we're going to do a repair on a 1927 Utah Model 16 drum speaker. Now, I've actually been wanting this speaker for quite some time. I was able to find this one online. Now, this was sold to me as a speaker shell because it didn't work and it's very lightweight, so the seller assumed that there was no speaker in it. However, there is actually a speaker in it, and not only is there a speaker in it, but the speaker works. However, there is a problem with the cord going into it, and I'm going to show you how to repair that because these old radio cords are kind of unique in that regard. Now, this particular speaker, the only reason why I know it's a 1927 model is I did find an advertisement for it, and it's the only advertisement I could even locate on this particular model, and it was introducing it as new in 1927. There is some other information out there on this particular model in places like Radio Museum and in some more recent publications where collectors have had them, but I have seen this speaker off and on through the years and just didn't realize how hard it is to find anything on it. Anyway, I did find some information on it. We are going to tear this thing apart so I can show you what it looks like inside, so let's go ahead and get started on that, and then afterwards I'll hook it up to a radio so you can hear what it sounds like. So this is a very good looking speaker, and this thing is in really good shape. This is, it says Utah made in Salt Lake City. Now the interesting thing about this company is they were based out of Chicago, Illinois. The corporate office was, but all the speakers were actually made in Salt Lake City, Utah, so hence the name Utah Speakers. Now they were in business for a while. I noticed that they were in World War II. They were producing equipment for the war effort. Prior to that, there was a lot of different speaker innovations that they came out with, a lot of speaker parts, things like transformers, and they also did things like potentiometers and things like that. So Utah was around for quite a while. There's just not a lot of information on this particular model for some reason. So I just kind of have the one advertisement. But this thing is really lightweight for its size. The bottom is made out of kind of a rep wood. This is metal, and it's got a metal grill, metal back. Like I said, that's rep wood. And down here, this is the speaker cord. And what happened was, I went ahead and cut this off. It had the speaker cord on it. I went ahead and pulled it apart, and what I discovered was that everything inside looked fine. There was a speaker in it. That's what surprised me. I wasn't expecting there to be anything inside because, like I said, it's very lightweight. But once I discovered that, I started doing some investigating, and I found out that the speaker coil was good. And I started moving this around, and I found that about 4 inches down, well, maybe about 6 inches, there was a break. And that break was causing it to not work. And I had a toner hooked to it, and once I found that break, moved it around, I was able to periodically get a tone out of it. So now what I'm doing is I've removed the ends here off the old part that I cut off, and I'm replacing them. Now that's what I wanted to show you because this is kind of an interesting process. The problem with these speaker cords is they use Litz wire. If you know anything about Litz wire, you know that it's a wire that's wound around a fabric. Each individual strand has a little piece of fabric in it. Every single strand here has wires wrapped around a piece of silk, and this is extremely hard to solder. Now the way they did this, I'm going to show you the technique that they used, and as you can see, it produces a nice solid connection there. So let's go ahead and go through that real quick, and then we'll take this speaker apart so you can see how this thing looks on the inside. Okay, so here's the little speaker end that I pulled off of it, off the old one. I desoldered it. Now, what I'm going to do, in order to solder Litz wire, this does not hold solder at all. It's just almost impossible. And if you've ever tried soldering it, you get so frustrated because it just does not want to solder. So what they did is they took a piece of wire. Now this here is just regular magnet type wire or transformer wire, and it's enamel coated, so that doesn't help. So I'm going to take a piece about that long. That's about, I don't know, a foot and a half or so. And then I'm going to take a knife here and just keep doing that. I'm scraping off that enamel coating. And the reason I'm doing this is so that the solder will stick to it. And I'm going to tell you right now, you're not going to get all of it off, but you definitely want to do this a few times. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of acetone. Just a little bit, you don't need a lot. Then I'm going to... So just try and get off any additional enamel that I can. Right. So now I've got my prepped wire. And what you want to do is start down here and just start wrapping this wire around the cloth. Try to make it as even as possible. Just keep going around it, nice and tight if you can. And then you're going to get into the Litz wire. And try and be real careful, get as much wrapped around it. I'm going to use every bit of this wire too. Okay, so, and what I'm going to do is that's going to get shoved into here. But what I've got to do now is I've got to heat this up. There's some solder in there. And I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. Get a little bit of this on here. Not a lot. Okay, now I want to fill that pot. Okay, I got quite a bit in there. I'm going to take this. I'm going to try and shove it down in there as far as I can. And it's going to make a mess. Let that cool. Okay, that should be long enough. Yeah, it's cooled down. Alright, so what I'm going to do is try and get some of this excess solder off of here. There's no flux on this thing here, and it's chrome plated, so stuff usually just peels right off. And what you can do can see they're nice and tight. Alright, so to test this thing out, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a little signal tracer. Now, last time I did this, gosh, everybody was asking me, what is this thing? Where did I get it? Alright, this is a signal tracer used to trace out wiring. It's used in telephone circuits. It's used, I used to be an audiovisual systems engineer, and I was a tech before that, and I use this a lot to trace out wires in buildings and stuff like that. What you do is you put this across the wires, and you can use this right here to find the wires. And if you got it hooked to a wire somewhere in the building, you can go down through all the wires until you find the appropriate wire. So that's what this is. And you can find these online. Just do a search on signal tracer, you will find them. I use them. The only reason I use this one is because I'm no longer using it for my job, so it's just sitting in my toolbox. But it happens to work really well for testing out speakers. So let me go ahead and hook this up to the speaker. And that's about as loud as you should hear it in a speaker, in a field coil type speaker. So that did it. That fixed my problem. So I wound up getting a full speaker for the price of a shell, which I think is just great. Now let's go ahead and tear this thing apart real quick, just so you can see how this thing is put together. Now the base itself is screwed in here at the bottom. There is a nut right here. I'm just going to take that nut and unscrew it. And that pulls right off. So that's the base. And there's a little hook right here. To remove the two halves of the speaker, I need to unscrew this. And there's a ring that goes all the way around it. And this thing clamps that ring. So let me unscrew this. There's the ring. There's one part of the speaker. And there you have your speaker cone on the inside. There's a little nut right here, and it's soldered on. I just broke the solder connection. And this is the cone. Metal piece there. And there's my speaker element right there. You got a couple of bolts here. You can pull this unit off if you need to service it, but that's pretty much it. That's all there is to it. Go ahead and reassemble this. Just going to heat up that solder. I want my cord to be straight down. Do my ring. Okay, now comes the fun part. putting this repwood base on is kind of a pain in the butt because I've got a hook here and I've got to hook that on there and pass it through that hole. Okay. All right. Okay, so I went ahead and hooked her all up, got her up on my Crosley 51 wood face that I did just a couple of videos ago, and let's see how this thing sounds. Okay, so as you can see, it's working just fine.
Yep, the records are all stacked and ready to scan.
So this was a nice little unexpected side project. When I got this today, I thought I was in it for the long haul. I'd be looking for parts and it was going to be sitting on a shelf for a while, but as it turns out, got a working speaker out of the deal. And I'm glad I was able to tear it apart, at least see how things looked inside, and to find out it's in as good a shape as it is, both inside and out. And of course show you guys how to take care of Litz wire ends on a speaker. So that was definitely something that I wanted to do for a while, and just now had the opportunity to do it. So anyway, I hope you all enjoyed today's video. Happy restorations, everybody. Hope to see you again next one. Bye.